Today I'm counting down my picks for the 10 worst products that I reviewed in 2023. I reviewed over 200 products this year, and these are the worst of the bunch. Not all the products on this list were new in 2023, but they were new to me. So without further delay, let's get right to my worst of 2023. Let's start our countdown with a product that at first glance maybe doesn't seem like it should be on this list because the final results really weren't that bad. And that is the Icee Slushy Maker. Now the final results weren't that bad, but the $130 price tag wasn't so good, nor was the involved process, the piercingly loud motor, and the syrup they sold, which wasn't very good. It's by no means more convenient than just running down to the gas station and buying a cheap slushy there. But here's some scenes from my original review. The first thing I noticed is that it's $130, but it's kind of just cheap plastic. It feels like maybe a $30 a cheap blender almost. In fact, the reviews are pretty bad for this one too. So both the unit and the syrup are pretty mixed reviews. There's quite a few people that don't like either one of them. I didn't realize how loud that machine was. It sounds worse every time I add something to it. Step number 1 is to plug it in. Step number 2 is to set it to the mix function. Number 3 is to ensure that the tap is in the closed position. Step number 4 is to add ice cubes to the unit, only filling it up halfway. Step number 5, you're going to add 2 capfuls of salt. Step number 6 is to add 1.4 fluid ounces of water. For number 7, you're going to fill it up the rest of the way with ice. And then number 8, you're going to add 3 more capfuls of salt. And number 9 is another 1.4 fluid ounces of water. Number 10, add the cap, and then number 11, you add the syrup, which is going to go slow because it'll overflow. Number 12, you're going to let it sit for 15 to 25 minutes while it makes the icey. Number 13 is the most difficult of all the steps. That's where when the ice drops down to a lower level, you have to add more ice, water, and salt, and you have to kind of maintain it the entire time. And finally, step number 14 is to switch it over to the dispense mode and dispense your icey. Let me taste this. That doesn't taste very good. Final result looks pretty good. It's like an icey. The texture is perfect. The taste is not. In my opinion, it's too much work and too much cost to make this worth the effort. Now, number 9 on my list is sort of a double entry. Back in July, I did a comparison of Temu versus Wish, and I bought the same brand of tennis shoes there. And those shoes belong on this list, and that is these. It didn't matter where I bought them from. These were the worst shoes I've ever had the misfortune of strapping to my feet. The soles literally felt like they were made out of wood. They were totally unforgiving, but let's take a look back at my original review and see how that went. These seem like they're coming from the same manufacturer. That seemed like the best way to test out the prices and the quality. It has the blade style soles in it, so I don't know, we'll be interested to see how that goes. Same brand. I don't see a significant difference. This one also has kind of the same feel to it. All right, so I wore these most of the time I was at Huntington Beach. I took some long walks with them, and I was not a fan of those shoes. But the soles have almost no cushion, and they're flat as a pancake. So not a lot of foot support. They're not really that comfortable, and they're kind of loose in the back too, but I'll show you about that a little bit later. The soles are hard as a rock like the other one. In fact, it feels like the sole is not centered with the shoe. But to me, the big problem is the back here. This part digs into my foot every step I take. So every time I take a step, I feel like someone's poking me in the back of my foot. I feel like a ridge across my foot. It's not comfortable. So instead of sitting on a flat surface, I have this kind of bump I'm stepping on. Not great. I'm not sure I would buy shoes from Wish or Temu. It just seems like you're asking for a disaster. Now, it's rare for a product to make my worst of the year list based on price alone, but number 8 comes close, and that is the $200 Inkless Pen that I reviewed back in January. I compared that to a cheap $6 model on Amazon, and the cheap version was better. So check out some scenes from my original Inkless Pen review. This is supposedly an inkless pen that uses no lead, no ink. It has an alloy tip that basically will last forever, but $200? I'm not sure about that. This is also an inkless pen that uses an alloy tip, and it also supposedly lasts forever. So let's compare the $6 versus the $200 inkless pens. There really isn't the tip, it looks like a piece of metal. This looks like a finer tip than the other pen was. I'm just gonna do some scribbling here, and, oh wow, it's very light. It's very light. Let me press down a little bit harder. I'm gonna go from light to hard. Well, you can make it darker. I'm pressing very hard though. The tip feels kind of dull too. I mean, you can't sharpen it, but it does feel kind of dull. Let's try the cheap model now and see how that does. Oh, this feels much more like a mechanical pencil. So I can go from light to dark. I can do that too, but I have more of a range. I can go from lighter to darker than I could with the expensive pen. The cheap one's better. Let me see if I can erase either one of these. This is from the expensive model, let's see. Not very well. Here's the cheap one. Oh, it even erases better too. Wow, it's not perfect, but it does erase. The cheaper one wrote better and erased better after the first use. Very dull. Like the dullest pencil you've ever used. I would say at this point, the $200 pen is striving to be as good as the $6 pen is. Number 7 on my list came from the Slap Chop brand. Now we've all seen Vince offer pitching the ShamWow and the Crank Chop and the Slap Chop. So when I saw the Slap Chop folding board, I knew I had to try it out. I liked the idea of this, but the reality was quite different. It doesn't lay flat and it moves around. The more I used it, the less I liked it. They definitely need to go back to the drawing board on this one. So check out some scenes from my original review and you'll see why. This is the Slap Chop folding cutting board. I guess not too bad. See, when I put it back down, it's actually kind of bowed now. I have to actually press it back down. Pour these out with the folded cutting board here. Well, so far so good. See if I can do a one-handed fold here. I can do it with one part of it. You know, I do feel like the cutting board is not flat. Look at this. That's just not good. Come on. I am feeling some cut marks in here. I've also noticed this cutting board doesn't have any kind of grips in the bottom, so it tends to move around a little bit. But to me, it's sliding around. When you pair that with it being slightly unstable, that becomes not the best cutting board I've ever used. It slides around a lot, so I don't know. I'm a big fan of Vince offer. I want to like this, but I gotta say it's not the best cutting board I've ever used. That seems to be what this is lacking. Not only is it lacking rubber grip, but it doesn't go back to a flat shape when you're done. You have to kind of manually put it back there yourself. I would say nice try, but maybe go back to the drawing board on this one. To me, this is a flimsy, kind of cheaply made cutting board. I like the folding feature, but I like almost nothing else about it. It seems like look at this. I don't know. It just feels cheap. That's probably why I haven't seen Vince offer talking about this much, because it's not very good. Number 6 on my countdown is the Blade Blocker. Now this is an updated version of the ID Police, which made my worst of the year list in 2021. I thought this one was pretty bad, so they put out a new one, and I still think it's pretty bad. In this one, they added refills, which were a mess and difficult to use. They added a blade that's not very good, and they didn't really improve the roller at all. So check out some scenes from my original Blade Blocker review. So I'm supposed to cut this tip off with some scissors and stick it in that hole right in there. I don't even know if this is working or not. I'll get on my fingers here. Oh, come on. Wow, okay, this is just a big mess. I'll just kind of mark up a few random things on here. Well, no matter what I do, I cannot seem to block out some of that text. All right, it's been 24 hours. At first glance, they look pretty good, but let's take a closer look and see if they really held up. 1/31/2018, I can still read it. The most accurate, dependable, and efficient. I can read it. Spices and real pumpkin seeds to create the seasonal. I can definitely read that one. So 5 I can read, 2 I can't. That's not really a great track record now. All right, so the other feature of the Blade Blocker, in addition to being like the ID Police, is that it has a blade on it. What I'm going to do is compare this to a regular letter opener. There we go. All right, smooth as silk. Look at that. Look at that perfect straight line. Absolutely perfect. That's a pretty sad bunch of open letters. Let me get the actual letter opener here and see what I can do. I can go away from me or toward me. The Blade Blocker just got blade blocked. Every single one of these was straight as an arrow. In some cases you can wipe it off, in other cases a magnifying glass you can still see through it. The ratio of those that worked that didn't is not very good for my tests. The blade itself is kind of mediocre, not really better than my box cutter or my letter opener. So I don't think this is going to replace my shredder, box cutter, or letter opener. Now in 2022, a buttermill made my best of the year countdown, but in this year, I have a buttermill that makes the worst of the year countdown. The buttermill I tried in September was difficult to use. It was slow and created more work than it was worth. It currently has the lowest Amazon rating among all the products in this countdown, so check out some scenes from my original review and you'll see why. It doesn't even look new. It looks kind of old. This one has abysmal ratings, so it's going to be kind of fun to test this one out. I was looking for positive comments on Amazon. I didn't find any. It goes right like that. It's barely fitting, but it does fit. So now what we're supposed to do is place it on here and then just turn. You have to kind of press and turn at the same time. Do we have butter coming out? We do. Oh yeah, look how small those are. Those are microscopic. And there's no setting. You only have one size. So let's keep spinning and see what happens. Fill, twist, sweep, and spread. All right, this is a lot of turning to get just this little bit of fine butter. So let's see if it happens if I sweep it off there. Sweeping the butter, and it comes into, well, I guess it's kind of one big clump. All right, I've got a warm piece of toast here. Let's see what happens with these ribbons here. All that turning, and that's as much as I got. It's gonna be a lot of turning to butter a piece of toast. Let me keep turning here. This takes some hand strength. And my hand's getting greasy from touching the butter. Oh, come on now. I can already tell you this one requires a lot of hand strength. And if your hands are all greasy from putting the butter in there, forget it. I'm actually getting to the point where I can't turn it anymore. A lot of work. This is too much work. There's gotta be an easier solution than that. I like the idea of this. They just need to go back to the drawing board and make it work a lot easier. It's not often that a #1 bestseller on Amazon finds its way onto my worst of the year list, but my #4 pick is just that. And that is the top selling bread slicer on Amazon. When I reviewed cheap versus expensive bread slicers back in September, neither one of them really impressed me. But the expensive model marked up easily, and I found splinters after every use. To me, that was a deal breaker, and here's some scenes from my original review. Cheap versus expensive bread slicers. Bread slicing kit with knife, crumb tray, and storage bag. I paid about 30 bucks for this. It's currently the #1 bestseller in its category. I also noticed I'm kind of making some marks in the bottom as I get to the bottom of it. All right, the thick slices, the center one looks a little bit thicker than the others. All right, so after the first round, I think my initial impression of the first slicer has been lessened. Let me show you why. That is a splinter. That is a splinter right there. So is that. We've got cut marks on the bottom after a single use. There's a splinter down there as well. There's one there too. It cut pretty well, but those issues are kind of deal breakers to me. Now I'm worried I'm gonna be making splinters and putting them in my bread. I just cut the splinter, oh, the splinter just fell off. I don't like having splinters next to my food. My thin slices are kind of uneven here as well. More splinters, and I've got more marks in the bottoms. You can't have splinters in your food, come on. I don't think it's as even. And look at this. There's a splinter I just found in there. That's it, that's it. But I'm seeing even more splinters now after a couple of uses. I don't like that at all. This one might be the #1 bestseller, but I have to side with the minority of comments that don't like it because of the splinter issue and because of the way it cuts the bottom. #3 on my list is a very recent product. It's so recent I had to make some last minute changes to this countdown because it's so bad it belongs on here. And that is the on-the-go projector. Billed as a projector, it is an empty box with a lens. If you think that sounds bad, wait until you see the final results. I kind of bought this one because the packaging was not clear, if that makes any sense. It's the Brookstone on-the-go projector. It was only 13 bucks. They say it projects your phone. It could be used with Apple or Android. I cracked it open, I read the instructions, and it really, this is an empty box with a hole cut out and a tube with a lens on it. There's no electronics. It's not really is it a projector? That's really kind of pushing it. This back part opens where your phone goes in here, right back there, and then it shines to that lens. That's it. They also give you this gel sticky pad that supposedly helps keep your phone from sliding around in there. Placing the phone on the sticky pad, closing it up. Oh, there's something. I can see something. And the text is even backwards. Wow, that is so dim. There's my dim face. And you can see this blurry. If I pull this back part out, I can kind of focus it. There we go, I'm in focus. It's about the same size as my phone, but just dimmer. This is about 3 feet away from the wall here, and you can see that. Look at that brilliant projection. Look at that crisp picture. It's huge. Who needs a big screen TV when you got this, right? All right, seems like about 3 feet away is about as far as you can get, and it's barely visible. And I can't even tell if it's in focus because it's so dim. This is more like a 3rd grade science project, not something you'd buy at TJ Maxx. In the middle of 2023, I tested a collection of soda gadgets, many of which did not impress me. But one of them stood out among the rest, and that one makes my #2 pick for this list, and that is this soda dispenser. This soda dispenser leaves a lot to be desired, so check out some scenes from my original review, and you'll see why. Now, admittedly, this is not very highly rated, but the way it's supposed to work is a 2-liter bottle of soda goes here, and you have a dispenser right there. All right, so I guess what I'm supposed to do is just twist it on the top. Oh, it's leaking out. We got a leak. Oh, well, you know, it's working. So this is so slow, you can actually put the handle up automatically and just wait for it. It's very slow. And the bottle's still only about half full, so it seems like as you get down to the bottom, it really kind of dribbles out. And this is how much soda's in there, so there's still a decent amount left, but look how slow it's going. And we have all that left, so it's not even gonna dispense an entire bottle. It's done. This one won't even dispense an entire bottle. This one at least will. Before I get to my number one pick, I've got a couple of items that I thought belong on this list, but that didn't quite make the cut. Here are a few of my dishonorable mentions. My first honorable mention is a product that probably wouldn't be on this list if it had a different name, and that is the Dippin' Dots maker. Anyone who buys this product and is expecting a Dippin' Dots-like experience will be disappointed. It makes frozen treats, but they're not Dippin' Dots. Check out some scenes from my original review. Now, the reviews are not very good for this one, but hopefully my experience can be better than average. So I'll fill it about halfway up. And it's leaking. It is already leaking. Hold on a second. All right, after filling the dispensers, next up you're supposed to put one of these trays in the base. So there's a hole here in the base, and there's a cup that you're supposed to fill with, and that goes in the hole itself. Oh, it's filling. It's filling. Oh, and there it goes. All right, so this tray is done. Press the lever in, and you can see how it's filling up the mold. That's pretty cool. I like the way that looks. That is kind of oddly satisfying, seeing them fill up like that. All right, I've got all 6 trays here. All right, it's been 4 hours. They say 2 to 3, so they should be nice and frozen by now. It doesn't sound like anything's breaking. I honestly don't have a very good feeling about this. That's what we got, but they haven't really come apart yet. Oh, I'm making a mess. I wouldn't say they're Dippin' Dots, but they're dot-like. They're circular frozen treats. I guess in that respect, they're like Dippin' Dots. I mean, it's pretty good. It's a nice frozen treat. It's not a Dippin' Dot, but it's a frozen treat. Pretty good frozen treat, but still not a Dippin' Dot. Real Dippin' Dots, fake Dippin' Dots. They are not the same thing. These are real Dippin' Dots. These are real, not Dippin' Dots. Totally different texture. It's not terrible, but it's not the same thing. The bad news, these ain't Dippin' Dots. My next honorable mention is a product that's kind of weird. It doesn't really live up to the advertising or the packaging, and that is Space Pong. Their marketing materials show this bright ball of light on the walls. We showed a dim light on the ceiling. Check out my original review and see how that went. So the way this is supposed to work is each player has a paddle. Player 1 is green. Player 2 is red. The base itself will shine a light ball on the ceiling. Their video showed the walls, but we only saw on the ceiling. When it's green, player 1 swings at it. When it's red, player 2 swings at it. Player 1 is green.
Player 2 is red.
It's you first.
Oh, did I get it?
You got it. Oh.
Okay. Okay. Whew. No, I missed it. I missed it.
I feel like I'm hitting the ceiling. I want to swing down here, not way up there. And you can barely see the red. The red's harder to see than the green. But our ball was nowhere near as bright as the one they show. Not only that, they showed it on the walls. I had it only on the ceiling. So there's a big difference between a bright light on the walls and a dim light on the ceiling. So to add insult to injury, the indicator from the red paddle sometimes showed up on the ceiling, so it looked like you had 2 lights up there to make it even more difficult.
Take that, take that.
This is ridiculous, Fred. This is totally ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
This is a Space Pong Team USA 2024. We're coming for you, Olympics. I don't think their video accurately represents what we saw. They had a bright light on the walls. We had a dim light on the ceiling, and not quite the same thing. I like the idea of it, but to me, it needs improvement. Well, it comes down to this, and I think that regular viewers on my channel won't be too surprised about my pick for the worst product that I reviewed in 2023, and that is the Zippi Sweeper. It's a kind of a hybrid vacuum and broom, which inevitably made all my messes larger. Hair and debris easily got stuck in the brushes, and the contents were prone to fall out. And I still see this one advertising online, but let's look back at my review for my pick for the worst product of 2023. I mean, it doesn't feel real smooth on the floor. There aren't actually wheels on it. You just have these kind of rubbing up against the floor. I mean, it's not picking it up on the first pass. In fact, it's knocking it around everywhere. How about up against the wall? And I still left some there too. It made the area of cleanup even larger. There's crumbs at a bigger area than it started off with because it knocks them around. It cleaned up a lot of it, but it actually kind of made a bigger mess. It does not sound good on the carpet though. Somewhat in the brushes though. That's gonna have to be cleaned out, so maybe that's not so great, I don't know. It's even around this little brush right here. Maybe his pet hair is not good for it. It's all wrapped around everything. Look at this. It's everywhere. Oh, look at this. All this stuff just came out. It's just kind of pushing it. It's kind of pushing it. This is not great. It's not great. But it's still kicking it. It's still kicking it. It doesn't seem to matter what I do. It's still going to do that. Oh, come on, look at that. No, that's not good. It's a bigger mess area than it was when I started. No matter what job I did, it eventually worked, but it was a lot more work than it should have been. In fact, I pulled out a regular broom and it seemed a lot faster than the Zippi Sweeper. Well, that's it for this countdown. It's kind of fun to look back and see which products didn't make the cut for 2023, and I think this was a pretty interesting collection. I appreciate everyone who's liked, subscribed, commented, and shared my videos in 2023, and I look forward to seeing you all again in 2024. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.